Everyone, welcome to the MAHA Mom podcast, where I am Dr. Lisa and this is Christine Kennedy, and we're coming together to share how to create a healthy lifestyle through homeopathy and functional medicine. And we want to remind you that this isn't meant to treat or cure any diseases or replace your medical care. This is really a wonderful place of community to talk about topics and education and information. So today I want to talk about food dyes because it seems to be really in the news lately, and we're going to play a little bit of food detective and help you locate food dyes. And also what's happening is they're changing the names, so we don't want you to be tricked. We want you to be able to be on top of this topic and create a non-toxic lifestyle. So this is one topic where we're going to start, right?
Yeah, it's a good one to start out too. I just hope it goes through the ban before 2027 or whatever they're saying.
Yeah.
Get that sped up. But
Me
it looks
too.
good with that state coming this week with West Virginia, you said?
Yeah, I have it in the news here on my phone. Of course, it just went away. But yes, West Virginia, I believe, is the first state to have banned it, or they're going to, becomes a bill becomes a law. So these take time. And the one thing that was upsetting, I have to agree, that they were talking about banning some of these dyes. And yeah, when they're going to say, oh, we'll do it by 2027 or we'll do it by 2028. I'm like, really? Because
A little
what
too
happens when
late.
the government changes, guards, and then what? Do they keep that in play?
Well, I mean, it's kind of why it's not just we don't want to be political. We do need people to get involved and have their voice heard. So, because there's a lot of different bills right now that are up in different states, and like the one in Idaho is, my friend is working on it, and it's to ban all medical mandates for the entire state. So like all of these awesome groups are showing us the blueprint, but we just need the right people in place in our state in order for it to happen. So that's all I'm going to say. That's what's on my mind this week. And I talked about it last night to someone else because you have to be the change. So whatever that leads you to do, you know.
Yeah, and this is why we've created this podcast, is for to get the information out to you, and for all of us MAHA moms and dads come together and try to have voice and get this change.
We are a force now. We are definitely
we are a force. I mean, we are currently where we are today because of us. So yay to all you medical
keep talking and
fighters,
everybody
keep talking. Yes,
because we can make the changes, and it's just, and if we don't speak up, we'll just keep getting this status quo.
Yeah. And I'm going to read this. I'm going to read a couple of the new stuff, but what bothers me the most and should bother all of us, if it doesn't bother you, I don't know, man, I question what's going on in here. But honestly, when you go over to Europe, these things from American companies, okay, well, I'm not even going to talk about the other companies. The American companies making an American product over there in Europe. I was in Spain in November and I checked this all out. They are making products, and Food Babe has been talking this for over a decade. They are making the very product, if you want to use Fruit Loops as an example, or if you want to use Kraft macaroni and cheese, whatever you feed your child, they're making it cleaner out there. They don't have the food dyes in it. They don't have the artificial coloring. They don't have, you go to foodbabe.com. She is the warrior in this. And it's infuriating. It's infuriating.
And that makes me mad at the people that are working for those, either the acronym agencies or also the politicians that support them, because it's their fault. And we've just been blind and busy and tired and dealing with our homes to not even pay attention to it. And it's criminal at this point because they can do it and they're not.
Yeah. And I'm going to show you an article, a blog article that I did. I'm going to try to share it on the screen so you can see that these studies that the European Union did are old. They've done them way back when. We're talking, it's not new. It's new to us maybe,
No.
but it's not a new topic. They banned these after they've done their studies and they saw it created hyperactivity in regular, non ADHD kids were becoming ADHD. These studies are been there. Food Babe has brought this out. So it upsets me that it's
Thank
taken us
God for her.
what?
I give her credit for
Oh,
staying
she
in the
did
fight
it.
as long as she has,
Yeah,
because it's fallen on deaf ears for way too long. And the only reason that I am so, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it is because this is my son's biggest trigger since for the last 10 years is if he gets the slightest bit of food dye, it's over. Like there's times he's been through 3 rounds of steroids from it and still
right.
not able to breathe. So, but go ahead.
I've had patients, moms tell me that it's not true. And I'm here to tell you it is true. And I'm
It
sorry
affects
that
them differently.
it
Yeah,
bothers
but
you. But this is true. We're gonna unpack this today and we're gonna help you with this. Um,
yeah,
so the breaking news was that West Virginia became the first state. I couldn't believe it. I was like, West Virginia, wow. Go
yeah,
West Virginia,
yeah, good for
ban
them.
all synthetic dyes.
That's
That's huge.
amazing. That's huge too, because you know, the ones that they're talking about, red three, what is that in? Like a handful of things. It really is kind of an insult at this point,
Yeah.
but I'll take anything that we could get just to help kids, you know.
But that bothers me, right? A little bit. Like we have to be thankful that they banned the one red dye, but
Yeah.
meanwhile we're like, what? They're
Red
all
40 is still going
are.
strong.
They're all toxic. They're all neurotoxins, which I'm going to get into, and I'm going to explain how they excite the nervous system. I'm like, oh, okay, we're not allowed to be upset. We have to take, a win. But meanwhile, I'm like, you're still poisoning the kids.
I mean, because you know what? It's just been us getting beat down for so long and not getting any leeway, because it hasn't been as well known or fought for or anything. So you do feel like you have to be appreciative, but like I said, it's an insult. It's time. And now that we have more people becoming aware, we just need to just band together and just keep going, because at
Yeah.
this point, honestly, I feel like big food, they could do all the changes they want. I'm never going back. I don't trust them. I've learned to live without it. And I just think that that's the best. But for people that can't and aren't, wanting to or whatever, that's fine too. At least it will help, the kids that might not get the help if it wasn't changed.
So this was our big win that we're really happy with. West Virginia made history as the first state in the nation to pass a statewide ban on all synthetic food dyes,
That is amazing.
set to take effect on January 1st, 2028. So we were a little bummed about that. Like, why
Mhm.
so long? Um, the the bill includes a ban on these dyes in school food beginning August 1st, 2025. So that's a win.
Yeah,
Um,
that is. That's
and
awesome.
again, you might say, well, you got to understand it takes a while for these companies, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, they're just going to sell all the crap that they have stored and then they're going to switch over to the ones they're already making. Like, they make the product clean already for other countries. It's there. They know how to make it.
Yeah.
So this isn't something that we're asking them to try to figure out. And then RFK Jr. stated that states are beginning to implement the advice. Actually, it's not his statement. Sorry, they just said that states are beginning to implement his advice. He's been warning us against these chemicals for decades. The crazy thing about this article here is they list West Virginia's roll call. It's it's an HB 2354, so that's the bill going into play, and they do all the yeses and the nays. So of course they go right to who the heck would nay this,
Yeah,
right?
that's telling.
And I don't want to get political, but sometimes we have to, because this is the stuff I want my listeners or our listeners to be aware of, because I got eye open to this when we were in Trenton
Yeah.
and we were fighting for the freedom, the medical and religious freedoms to have the choice to say yes or no to sticks in New Jersey. And you didn't realize, like I said this, I believe in our beginning podcast, was that most Republicans at the time were voting with us, were on our team, but some of us threw us under the bus. And then
Mhm.
it was like 3 or 4 Democrats that saved us. The rest of them are like against us. So I just realized, one, I try to be bipartisan. I try to be independent because there are good people on both sides doing the right
Yeah.
thing. But also, when you look at this, you still go to like, who the heck is saying no to having cleaner foods?
You just have to get out the dead wood, whatever side they're on. If they're not voting for your betterment, and your family's betterment, then they need to go and they need to be, voted out.
Yeah. So
I don't
what
have
I'd
time
like
for
to
them.
do, yeah, you're right. I want to share two things. And then Christine has some stuff too. But I want to show you first. The first thing I want to do is show them my blog because I have all the information stored there.
Oh,
And
good.
I wrote this a long time ago, but my old website crashed. It got hacked and it was a nightmare. And I created a new one, I think 2 years ago. So when I put these articles back up, they got dated the day I put them up. So they look newer than they are. And I'm proud about that because it's been there for a while. It's a topic I've been talking about. I teach my patients this. I scream about this from give me a second here. I know that I thought it was going to go right to it, but it's not. So here's my website. Sorry, there's a little lag here. And I wrote about sports drinks. I actually have been on radio shows about this.
I remember this.
Yeah, I actually have been in magazines about this. I've written articles. I used to write for an autism magazine. So this is a really good article. You can go to my website if you want to read it, but it talks about, and I love the sports drinks because of the colors. So you get it right away. Orange, blue, red, green, yellow, right?
Yep.
And conventional sports drinks are laden with harmful chemicals and additives. They act as toxins in the body. They're linked to severe health problems such as allergies, intolerant reactions, memory loss. I have it right here, ADD, ADHD, skin lesions. And you can, and I have the studies to support this. That's why I want people to actually see this. Here's the artificial dyes and coloring. I go into all the different ingredients that aren't healthy in sports drinks, but today this podcast is about the dyes and the coloring. So citrus red 2, red 3, red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, blue 1, blue 2, green 3. I'm reading them up, by the way, because this is also an audio podcast. So if people can't see this, they know what I'm reading. They're derived from coal tar and petroleum. And according to the Center of Science and Public Health Interest, they've have been contaminated with cancer-causing chemicals. So that's the first study. The second was the British Food Standards Agency in 2001. And I'm proud of these old studies because this is what I want people to, this has been here. They concluded after a study that 6 dyes or colorants and the additive sodium benzoate was linked to hyperactivity and ADHD in children. And as a result, the European Union law required all beverages with these 6 dyes to have warning labels. So that was the beginning of when this was happening. And this is where Food Babe was like pretty, I believe she was active at this time, or maybe not. But this is when it would start coming out. So Europe was way ahead of us. Like,
oh yeah,
way ahead of us. There was a study in 2007 with the Lancet by the Southampton University. They funded the UK food standards industry. They linked artificial dyes to increase hyperactivity in all children. This is what I'm talking about, not just the children with ADD, ADHD. So if you had a child that wasn't hyper and they were having this stuff, they did this whole study to see how it was effective. And this is what they came up with, that the study supported the claim that food additives can exacerbate hyperactivity, which is inattention, impulsivity, overactivity in children from preschool to middle ages. And then in 2008, the CSPI, which is that Center for Science and Public Health Interest, they decided to phase out 8 dyes, which stated that some have potential cancer tendencies, and then also this hyperactivity. And this is where it gets good. Many of the dyes and colorants are used in common foods, even cheese, even ketchup, hot dogs, soft drinks, candy, sports drinks. It's like, and so many things. And here's where they started banning dye orange B was reported to be used in hot dogs and sausage casing. Canada banned it. Toxic blue 1, blue 4, red 40, and yellows 5 and 6 was linked to allergic reactions. So you're talking, right, back cell, histamine, right? And yellow 5, which is also called tartrazine is prohibited in Norway and Finland. So you can go through this. I'm not going to read the whole article, but like here's where it was. I wanted to bring this up because there's a history of these countries other than ours. Because if you look at ours, well, and I've been doing this for a long time, Christine, they'll tell you no. Just how
Yeah.
they'll tell you the sticks wasn't related to autism. No, 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 no. Right?
Yeah.
Uh,
The last place I would trust food is in the US. I'm
yeah,
happy when I can get stuff from Germany or Italy or somewhere else.
yeah. So I just love that I keep this article going. It's old, but I've been, preaching this and talking about this topic for so long.
Yes.
We must be vigilant in removing these dyes from our drinks and food choices. And sports drinks is so common. I mean, I walk into some friends' houses and you go into their garage, because sometimes you go through a garage to get into their house, and there's cases of them. And I'm not even going to begin that they're in plastic water bottles, because I have an article on here about plastics and the water bottle dilemma and how that disrupts hormones in the body. That's a whole nother thing. So you've got like this plastic water bottle that's super dangerous, and then you put this coloring in the dyes. Not good, right?
No. And
Then they have,
petroleum like that.
yeah,
I don't know
made
if I was
from
numb
coal
to that
tar and
word.
petroleum.
Petroleum. How does that, I mean, it's in your medicine too. So I guess I just accepted it all until I couldn't anymore, you know?
I also have on here at the bottom, just for you moms and dads, I tell you how you can make a homemade sports drink. There's recipes here. This is what I did with my kids. You do not need to buy these drinks, like you said. Like I don't even do the box aisles anymore. I don't do stuff in the box aisles. I might have to run down and get like, some cane sugar, or maybe, some organic coffee or something. But I don't even put my cart down the. If I had a supermarket, there'd be no box aisles. That
Yeah.
stuff's sickening. But you also can do coconut water. That's great. Has a ton of electrolytes. And you and I have talked about this. If you want to share how to do a sports drink, you can use the salt that we've talked about, a little bit of sea salt. And there's a brand that you loved, you were telling me about.
Oh yeah, Redmond's.
Redmond's.
Redmond's salt. Yeah, they do make an electrolyte drink, and because of my POTS, I do tend to need electrolytes. Just the salt isn't enough. And theirs seem to be one of the cleanest. That and Just Ingredients is another brand that's clean. Um, it has citric acid, but it's non-GMO. And it has some coconut water, I guess, powder in it. And it's a cleaner like source of the salt. So it's one that I tolerate the best. And when I don't have it, I actually feel worse. So I'm kind of stuck with it for now.
Yeah.
Because I tried the pinch of salt and then drink the water, but it's just not the same for some reason.
Yeah. So in on this article, there's limeade, sports drink, and orange, and aid, and strawberry. So I'm really suggesting to just start pulling out these dyes, turn the ingredient, turn whatever it is, because it's not just sports drinks. I just use as an example. I also have an article on Halloween candy on here, and I go over Easter candy, and so we go over candy. So there's dyes in candy. But just start whatever the food item is, or I'm playing that word very loosely. I'm actually using air quotes, right? Like it's like
Yeah.
food. Um,
If you
whatever.
want to list some of the ones that were, I was, I had to do another cold turkey with the food dye, and some things that were really surprising to me that I never would have guessed was marshmallows, the white
I
marshmallows.
wouldn't
They
have
have
thought
blue
that.
dye.
Which
So
one?
that's,
Blue?
yeah, blue dye. I think it's like blue one. Um, Also chocolate pudding, chocolate cake mix, chocolate frosting. Like, I don't know why they have to put red dye in there, but they do. Pickles and
Pick.
relish,
I wouldn't have
mustard,
thought.
frozen waffles. Like, oh, they used to love the frozen blueberry Eggo waffles or whatever. Yeah, be careful with those. They may have switched since we stopped, but back then they definitely had, and I'm sure there's other brands that still use food dye. Um, and then there's jelly, there's dressings, mouthwash, toothpaste, and even white vitamins and white medications. You need to go to the manufacturer. I would have to get that and look it up and go through the entire ingredient list to make sure, because there was one time that for 3 months his blood pressure was like, I forget, nine, 990/50 or something close to that. He couldn't even function. So it was horrible. And I did not know that there was food dye in it because it was white and I just assumed. So those are good ways to like look for it in places that you might not think it is.
And how did the food dyes affect your son and you? Because you said that you just avoid them now completely, but what did it do
Yeah,
to you?
I just don't do it because I know it's a mast cell trigger. I don't have, I mean, it would give me like a, like, those ices in the tube that
Oh,
you used to get when you were little,
yeah. Those
at your friend's
colored,
house. They're like those long tubes, you
ice
cut the end and you
pops.
suck on it.
Yeah.
The red ones always gave me a sore
Cut the
throat.
plastic off, yeah.
Yeah.
Sore throat?
Um, yeah, I would get a sore throat, but nothing major. But for him, he kept getting viruses. Like every 2 weeks, he would get a virus. And I was like, what the heck? And I asked his doctor, and he's like, well, I don't know. That's a good question. Um, and somewhere, just my instinct, I finally listened to my instinct. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to pull food dye and I'm just going to see what happens. So I pulled it for a few weeks and then, like, I wasn't sure. He wasn't getting sick as much. But then he had Valentine's Day party at school. And I was like, oh, I don't want to ruin it for him. I'm just going to let him go to the party and see what happens. And sure enough, 2 days later, he was sick. And I was like, I wonder if it is that. So every time that it would start to happen, like, because it wasn't happening as often because it wasn't in our home anymore, but he would get sick. And then I would say, Jack, did you get like something from somebody in school? Like, oh, yeah, so and so gave me a Jolly Rancher. And I was like, oh. And it always seemed for him to be on a 2-day delay, but it would always affect his airway. He would get red cheeks. He would get like patches under his eyes that were like a little swollen. And he would be like pale other than the red cheeks. But then this cough never had a bottom. Like, when you can, nothing would close it up. And so
Yeah.
that's when they started to give him steroids too. And they started to not work. So we just got really, really vigilant about it. At 10 years old, we taught him how to read labels. Like, do not, because before he got sick, he was at the skate park and going to all friends' houses and, doing all those things. And I was like, you have to read the labels. And he knew how sick it made him. So he had no problem doing it. I'm really proud of that change that he had made. Um, but yeah, it just was him getting sick all the time. So it doesn't always present as ADHD or as, the other ways that it says. Just keep that in mind that it can just be like chronic sickness too, because it affects your immune system,
Yeah, because it's
and
creating
I
that
didn't know that.
it's
It can
creating
provoke
that
allergies,
allergic.
inflammation, stress your immune system, make it overreactive. It can trigger autoimmune conditions and sensitivities, cause rashes, headaches, digestive issues, disrupt the gut bacteria. We already mentioned the behaviors, and I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
that's all
should
I
we
have.
be eating something from coal tar? I mean, it just, from tar. It's crazy.
No, no, and
And
it's
and it's
so
linked to cancer. So like, why are we giving our kids something cancerous? I don't understand it
I don't
on
I
a daily
now that
basis.
I just don't think people realize.
Yeah.
And now that I do, like with my grocery store, you walk into the bakery and I literally like my whole body like clenches because at the holidays, everything's bright red and bright green.
Oh,
And then
no.
there's like birthday cakes. And why? And I just had a friend who has a 1-year old and she's learning all this. And she had a cake at her last party this week. And then she put the picture on Facebook. It was a white cake, but they got the umbrellas, those little drink umbrellas. And
Yeah.
they decorated the white cake with the drink umbrellas and they cut up strawberries. And I was like, now there you go. You got the colors and you're not poisoning anybody. Time.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be that way. It's so easy to change. It really is. Just, you know, ways that I did it was I started to just make things from scratch instead of the box mac and cheese. I made it from scratch. Or, they have dye-free colorants now. And I mean, there's ways to make the changes. And if we can help in any way, if you guys have any questions, ask them in the comments on our social media. I'd be really happy to just share those things if it can
Yeah,
help you.
and if your child or you have like a favorite thing and you're like, how do I get this cleaner? How do I, I've been doing it for so long that
Yeah,
I'm really
there's
good
tips.
at it. I can really help. We can really help you. So don't be afraid to ask us.
Those Starbursts,
Yeah.
those ones, I forget the brand. I know what the label looks like, but there is even, some, because that was the thing when he would go to these places with these other kids that were eating them. I felt bad depriving him in those situations. So I would get him the dye-free versions or, things like that. Or, parties at school, he couldn't have the cake. Like even now he's 21 and he's going to a party and I'm like, don't eat the cake because it's so easy to forget. It's a vanilla cake. You wouldn't think there's yellow dye in it, it just doesn't make sense. But at school parties and stuff, they would let me bring in like a box to keep other things in. So I was like, okay, he can't have the birthday cake, but maybe I could give him like this chocolate, there's a
Yeah.
healthier version of chocolate. So it still was like something that made him, not feel deprived. Um, but it wasn't the food dye. So,
I have two other articles on the blog, and I don't want to keep switching the screen on people.
oh yeah.
So, and I'll read it because for people that are audio, when you're doing chocolate, I did my best. Sometimes these change. Sometimes these companies get bought
Oh
out.
yeah.
I do my best to keep this updated. So, if there's a mistake or something, you look it up and go, "Oh my gosh, I added this to it." I apologize. But on this week, the last I looked, chocolate was like a good brand was Lake Champion, the Equal Exchange, some of them with chocolate too. You want to make sure that the rainforest isn't being destroyed as they're trying to get the cocoa. Endangered Species is actually a brand that I like. There's a
Yeah.
company called Unreal Candy. They actually make that popular version of Reese's peanut butter cups, Snickers, Mound bars, and M&Ms. I'm actually really grateful for this company because if
Yeah.
you are doing like, let's say Easter, Resurrection Sunday, or Halloween, or like you said, a birthday party, you can get now, and they didn't have this when Christine and I were raising our boys. This was harder. You can now get the clean version where they don't use these dyes. So Unreal, that's a brand that they have the different
Yeah, I've
candies.
seen that one at the health food store. The
Justin's nut butter cups. They're basically like peanut butter cups, but he uses real dark chocolate and real peanut butter.
And they're easy to make too yourself. You just
Oh, they
melt the
are easy to
chocolate
make.
chips, get the silicone mold or whatever you're going to use. And then, I mean, it's really easy.
Yeah, we do all our chocolate now by scratch. We just make our own stuff at home. It's so much easier and healthier. Um, Yummy
And
Earth,
cheaper. It's less
that,
expensive.
and cheaper. Yeah. I mean, Yummy Earth is a great brand, been there a long time. It's one of the first pioneers. So I
Yeah.
give them credit and I would love for you guys to support them. But they do a lot now, Yummy Earth. They have like the lollipops, I think they started off with. Another brand is Surf Sweets.
Yes.
So these are great for all the gummy stuff. If your kid's into the gummy worms and the gummy bears and all that stuff. And so I
They
really
have the
suggest
peach
people
things.
check some of these companies out. They're really great. Again, I have a Easter post and I have a Halloween post that goes through the common candies of what's really gross with the Easter and the Resurrection Sunday? Um, those my kids they fight me every time. The peeps.
Uh-uh.
Those little
Oh,
peeps that are like purple and I don't know, pink, yellow. Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
He wasn't happy about losing the peeps,
Yeah.
but
And some of these
I,
companies have they take the dyes out of the jelly beans and stuff like that too. So you don't have to go through, like Christine was saying, you don't really have to go through the holidays anymore. You don't have to really do these birthday parties, and you can make your own cakes and you can do all this stuff a lot healthier. So obviously
there's a
going
dye for there's a
like
dye. I just want to mention there's a dye-free brand of marshmallows called Dandy. DAND.
Dandy,
Yeah, just wanted to mention that.
DAND.
Because then that way you could make Rice Krispie treats. You could make your own version. I mean, I don't know that I would be making my own peeps, but
I know peeps are a little hard.
they're actually, did you see there's a lot of people making their own marshmallows and I'm not a fan of marshmallows, but the way that the homemade ones are made, I might
So if you get the really true healthy homemade recipe, it's actually really healthy. So it's
Yeah, the
right.
collagen and stuff.
Same with Jello. There's another one. We know that, right? The red Jello, the yellow, the green. I'm gonna barf. But you
Mhm.
can actually make Jello and gummies and all that using Knox gelatin, and then you use. Let's talk about that. What could you use to dye something? So you could use grape juice, right? You could use
Yeah, any
you,
kind of juice.
yeah, you could use any kind of juice.
Puree the puree the fruit.
Puree
That's
the
what
fruit.
I did a
Yeah,
lot of that with the because I did know enough to make his food, his baby food, because I was like, what is this meat in a jar? Like, so we were making purees. Like, it's so easy. Throw it in the crock pot, throw it in the pressure cooker. That's all you need to
yeah.
do. Put it
We
in the
made our
thing, you're
baby food
done.
too. Yeah. So when you go buy like organic brand, certified organic, or a cleaner version, this is what you have to do is this is what I started doing way, way, way back when. Go and get a organic, let's say, quote, Fruit Loops, but it's not Fruit Loops, right? It's the little Cheerios that are colored.
Yeah.
If you do like, I think Cascadian Farm or one of them, again,
Hmm.
these companies get bought out, so they could have changed. I don't buy box foods really too much anymore, so um, I don't have their ingredients memorized. But let's say you go take a certified organic one that's like an organic version of Fruit Loops. Then you go get Fruit Loops, turn them over and compare the ingredients, and you'll start learning. Oh, the purple Fruit Loop is like grapes. The red is the beet. The orange is from is from carrots. But then you go over to the Kellogg's Fruit Loops and you say, oh, it's red dye 40. It's orange something. And you start looking at the ingredients in general, and you're like, oh my gosh, these aren't even compatible, these two things. Which one would you
I
feed your
do
child?
want, yeah, and I wonder what the premise behind it is. Like, is it cheaper, or is it that they just want to make us sicker so that we can just put more money into other industries? Like, I really wonder the motive,
I
to
don't
have.
I don't know. I mean, I do believe that the medical model is set up so they create the problem, then have the solution for the problem. So I do believe that if you really, really look at it, they're going to create the problem, and so I think it's there to get us sick because then they have all the medicines to treat that.
That's what
I
I
wouldn't
think.
say get us better. I would just say treat it.
Yeah,
Um,
because they would just charge us more if that was the case, if it cost more. Like,
yeah.
I really do believe that there's some, I hate to be a cynic, but
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, you could be like, oh, she's a conspiracy theorist. But I just think if you really open your eyes, a really great book that opened my eyes was called The American Way of Birth. And I
never
think
heard of
she
it.
rates The American Way of Death too. And it's the beginning of when they took, it's right before kind of the industrialization. It's kind of when that's all like exploding. And it's how they took, and they meaning the society, government, whatever. They, they took the birthing industry and created like a massive business out of it. And bear with me,
Oh,
keep an open mind. When you read it, they get into how they did this with medicine and how they did this with death. Like think about when someone dies compared to what they used to do back in the old days. My grandmother was alive in her days and what they do today. Everything's a massive business. And that
yeah.
book opened my eyes to like, wow. And then you'll start seeing it in other areas where pharma is a massive business, the food industry is and it's all connected. But this isn't the cigarette companies in charge of some like the food?
Oh, they took over the food, big food. I
Like
got to
that's
read that book
crazy.
that you just mentioned. I definitely want to read that.
American Way of Birth is one of the best eye-opening, I think, books of all times. And then I recently saw that she wrote The American Way of Death, meaning that when you die, they made a big business out of funerals and caskets and this whole society thing that we kind of just like little sheeps and we just follow.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Because what else? I mean,
why would they make
I
it
only
cleaner? Here's
turned.
my question: why would they make it cleaner for Europe? Why would Europe demand laws that 'cause they're making it cleaner because these countries have laws, right? You can't bring that product in here if it has X, Y, and Z. So they take the X, Y, and Z out. Why don't they
I
do
guess
that
they
for
care
us?
more about their people.
Yeah,
United
why doesn't
States.
our FDA say you can't have these three things in here either?
Yeah,
Uh,
I wonder what their ADHD rates are and stuff there.
that would be
I'm
interesting.
gonna look that up. Let me write that down too. I'm
So what
curious.
I'm suggesting for you guys is to do what Christina and I have been doing through our lives, and don't get overwhelmed by this. Just pick one thing. Pick
Yeah.
one. So if your kid loves Fruit Loops, right? Get a cleaner version and then pick something else. Like do one thing at a time. Would you agree?
Yeah, but there's one thing that I just want to say, because there are times that I did get the healthier version and he was like, I don't want that. So what I had to do was not give it to him at all for like 2 months and then go back to it, because then the memory of the old one wasn't there anymore. And then he was like, oh, more appreciative. Like, oh, I haven't
Oh,
had this in a while. And there wasn't much to compare it to because that memory was, and I just kept retrying that way or trying another alternative that was close. And so just don't give up, keep going, you know.
that's a really good point because I think that I used to do food play in the office. I literally would play with food with kids and get them to overcome their
I
sensory
remember
issues.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I would tell parents is you're in control, although you don't think you are. And this goes into parenting in general. When you start getting nervous or you start getting like, I can't do this. This isn't worth, this isn't a battle I want to have. You are the one that's in control. The child is trying to control you, but you're in control. So get the control of your kitchen back. And that's
Yes.
what I'd say. Like, don't buy it.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's the
well,
truth.
I was
I,
just telling somebody the other day, I was born in 71. You too, right? You're born in the 70s, right?
70.
Yeah. So she's 70, 1970, I'm 1971. Okay. My house was my mom, whatever she made for dinner. We were just laughing the other day about this because you guys are gonna laugh. We had to either eat it or figure it out. There just wasn't, you didn't challenge her nor my father because they weren't going to hear it. She was cooking all day for us and she's Italian. My dad worked all day. There was no way they wanted to hear our whining about food. And my mom's Italian, she made a lot of food, so she's like, you can find something on this table. So
I would have
I
to
don't
sit.
like I've never liked red meat. I am not a red meat person. And she would, once a week we'd have like a London broil, a roast beef, and I wasn't allowed to say something because I'd be in trouble. Like you're not doing it. So I had to figure it out. So she would always make mashed potatoes. And my mom, we were laughing about this the other day. I would do a pound of mashed potatoes in the middle of the plate. I'd put a hole in the middle like a volcano. I'd cut the meat up so little. I'd put it in there and then I'd put some corn and then I would either put the gravy or ketchup or something. She didn't care. She let me put ketchup on it. And then I'd get in trouble sometimes because she goes, are you playing with your food? Because I would just literally like take my time to hide the
Whatever you could to hide it.
and
That's,
I would
you know
eat
what?
it.
Sometimes it's the texture. Jack didn't like meat for a long time,
And
but
it's
my mom used to do kibasi and sauerkraut
oh,
or pork chops and sauerkraut. And I would throw up every time I ate kibasi and sauerkraut. And now looking back, it was a histamine issue.
yeah.
But she would be like, you have to sit at the table and you can't get up until you eat. And I was like, I would be there 9 o'clock at night on
Oh
kibasi
yeah, my
night.
mom, she didn't do that. She was just like, I guess you're not hungry, and then you try to sneak in there later and she's like, kitchen's closed. Sorry. She'd have this sign that it was closed. And you're like, darn it. So we used to stash like apples and oranges and stuff. So I'm not
Love
saying
them.
we have to like starve our kids and get like that ridiculous.
No, but
My girlfriend's mom used to make her sit at the table until she finished it. And I'd be
I used
visiting. I'm like, just eat it so we can go play. My gosh, put it in there. Just hold your nose.
like, that's so funny. I was feeding Jack off the salad bar, like, because he didn't know any different. So even like 3 bean salad, like I wouldn't eat it, but he would. But then I'll tell you what, his first chicken nugget ruined everything. And I give that advice to my friends that were having kids afterwards. I'm like, just don't ever give them a chicken nugget. Because once they get that taste for like the fried, they don't want anything else.
I
So
know. It's
that's
downhill
one of
after
my,
that. Once they taste the
if I could do anything, I would have taken back that first, because he's 21 and still getting chicken finger. If we order out somewhere, he's like, oh yeah, like you hit the lottery.
it was downhill for my kids when they got their license. So I was in
Oh
good
yeah.
control. I have to say it until they got their license. And I could not figure this one out for the life of me. They were going to Wawa, 7-Eleven. I don't know where they were. They'd be at school and they'd all go out to lunch. I was just like, I have just lost control of nutrition for them. And
Totally.
it's been an
Totally.
argument since then, But the thing you've got to remember is they do come to me when they get in like they love to cook, my three boys. So when they find something healthy, they'll tell me they're excited. If they'll sometimes they'll be like, Mom, look, check out this label. So I was like, oh, I have taught them well. You know, I've
Yeah,
taught your
yes,
young one,
yes.
you know?
Yeah, mine doesn't like to eat out as much as
Yeah.
he used to, he would rather have the homemade one. But sometimes he's picky, he doesn't like his chicken reheated. So I'm like, listen, if you're at work and that's what I'm because that's his favorite food. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I'll stay up to like 10, or 9 and cook it fresh for you. But after that, I'm going to bed. So he has his little picky tendencies still, but we're working on them. I'd rather just give him money and have him get food at work because at
Yeah,
least it's like they cook all their own food there. So at least it's not like he's getting Taco Bell or McDonald's and like, you know, because they do that too with their own cars,
I know.
unfortunately.
I don't want to share the screen because I feel like it sometimes glitches. Or should I go back to sharing the screen? Um, what do you think? Because there's an article here from Green Smoothie Girl.
Oh yeah, for the names. I would just so people can like,
Okay.
sometimes if you just say them, it's not
I'm going to try to share the screen,
enough
but I
of a
will read
routine.
it for those of you. I don't know why it's not there when I share. Here
Yeah.
it is. Can you see it, Christine?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. What we liked about this article was that she does a great job. So it's greensmoothiegirl.com. And she does give you better choices for dyes and things like that. But she's talking about the new food dye names to avoid. So, not only are we being poisoned, but they're changing the name so we can't find it. So here I am
Yeah.
saying, hey, be a food detective, turn your foods over or turn the box over, read the ingredients. But now you're like, wait a minute. I don't know what this word is.
Yeah.
So I'll try to read these. I might not be able to pronounce everything perfectly, but yellow 5, and I don't know, E102 is also called tartazine. I think I mentioned that in the article. Other names, yellow 6 is E110, and you can go to this article and read all this. Sunset yellow. So if you see
Yeah, I've
that,
never seen
that
that, but I
um
don't pick them up anymore.
carmazine. Um,
Yeah.
it's also acid red 18. I don't think I've seen those two, but that's another one.
No, but look at the next one, Red 40. Allura Red is called now.
Yeah, and there's
That's
also E's. So
yes.
E122, E129, E133. I've never seen the numbers, but again, this could be different states or different countries. But yeah, red 40 is also called Allura red.
Is
Crazy.
that unbelievable?
Blue 1 can be called brilliant blue. I have seen that.
No.
Indigo, carmine is also blue too. And it's also indigo tine. So I guess indigo is blue. Red
Yeah.
3, there you go, is also called erythrocin. I would never think that. If I saw erythrocin on something, I wouldn't think food
No.
dye.
No.
I'd be
And you
thinking
teach your
vitamin
kids to
or
read the labels and now they have all new words to learn.
yeah. Here's another one. Yellow is also quinoline. Green
Or
3 is fast green. Crazy.
yeah. Now
Curcumin, which is not, I guess you could use curcumin's pretty healthy, right? But they're saying it's also
yeah,
called E100.
I haven't
Wow.
seen that.
You haven't seen
Caramel
that?
color Jack didn't have that reaction from, but it's still not good. I think it's a carcinogen, isn't it? Caramel color? No?
Yeah, caramel coloring. And beta carotene is super confusing because I do food additive testing. So what we do is we could test for food sensitivities. And what we do is we look, you get it's a blood test, and we're looking for it's an immune system reaction. So it's when the gut cells are attacking foods, proteins in the foods. You're going to give off, yes, histamine and inflammatory particles, but you also will give off an antibody. So if the antibody levels are super, super high, we would want that person to remove that food for a little bit while we're trying to bring down their inflammation, just calm down their symptoms. We have one for food additives, and beta carotene's in there. But what I learned, because I asked the lab this question, I was very confused. I was like, is this beta carotene that's in a carrot? Like, is this the natural
Yeah, that's
coloring
what
in
you
a
would
carrot?
think.
And they said, no, beta carotene's also an additive made in a lab. So when you turn it over on the box, you think, oh, carrots,
Yeah.
right? That's because I was like, well, if we just tested carrots and food sensitive, why are we testing the coloring in it? And they were like, no, this is an additive. We have a big list of additives that we test. Food dyes is a whole section. And they're like, no, these are all synthetic. So the whole
Yeah.
list, you know. So that's really confusing too. Just that word beta carotene is like super confusing.
Totally.
And
And
then
natto
natto.
too.
So this is a really good, go to her blog or website, Green Smoothie Girl, and then in the search button I just put dyes, and she wrote this in November 8th, 2024. So pretty new, and she's talking about a little bit of what I did, but she gets more into the coloring part of it, the new names.
Yeah, that's so wrong.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But
So
it's not that hard of a change to make. I would just start somewhere and just keep going. You know, if you're overwhelmed, just start with one thing. If you could
yeah,
cut it cold turkey, then that's really great. But
and even if you're
hopefully,
not, I'm sorry, but even if you don't have children,
even for
we should be
yourself.
doing that for ourselves as well. So just start going. What I would do is open up your pantry and just start looking at the boxes and just look for the, food dyes. Obviously, we can go over other bad ingredients, in this podcast as, in MAHA moms as we go along, but this one specifically food dyes. Just turn it over and look. And if there's a coloring in there, and they're in weird places, like Christine said, just think like
Yeah.
marshmallows.
I wanted to make tartar sauce the other day and I went to Stop and Shop to get relish and there wasn't one that they had that didn't have food dye in it. I was like, what the hell?
So
And then I'm like, do I chop up pickles? And then I went to Aldi because Aldi has like their own brand doesn't have food dye. So that was one reason why I started to go there originally. Because at least I knew that I could get things there that I couldn't get at the food store, that I could get there dye free. But also, I think they're out of Germany. So I think that they have maybe some better food standards. Not saying they don't have garbage because they trust me, their chips and all that other stuff has a bunch of crap in it. But I do find some better food choices there, and I was able to get the dye free relish there. And I did that instead. If not, I probably would have chopped up the pickles and done it that way. And I'm sure that the relish that I bought wasn't the best, but I was just glad there was no food dye in it.
yeah, and sometimes you have to make a choice. So there's, in my opinion, different tiers of food. And we talk about this with my patients. Obviously, certified organic, they
Oh
have
yeah.
a label, has really strict guidelines. Whether the company follows it or not, I can't tell you. But I know when I had a skincare company and we were trying to get that label, it was really hard to get because there was all these guidelines you had to follow. So I
Yeah.
know for sure that label, that food is going to be like, higher quality than something that doesn't have it,
Yeah.
right? But then
Well,
there's
that's what
gonna
I
be,
was looking for. Nature's Promise. They
yeah,
usually have I would trust organic more than anything. But they
but
didn't
sometimes you
have
look at the company and they do throw some garbage in there because they're allowed to have a certain percentage. And then
yeah.
you have kind of got the middle of the road, which I tend to shop, like I try to shop between the organic and the middle of the road. Where, like you said, you'll go to Aldi's, it might not be organic, but it's cleaner. I mean, you're looking at it and you're like, all right, it's mayonnaise, it's just eggs, vinegar, it's clean, right? Where then
Yeah.
if you go down to the garbage stuff, you're like, what is this? Like you said, you're looking at
Yeah.
pickles, and there's dyes and there's
I have a hard time with mayo
preservatives, and
too.
you're like, what is this?
Yeah. I try to get the avocado mayo. I don't like the olive oil one so much, but I do make it myself sometimes. That's not, it's really, if you have an immersion blender, it does only take a couple minutes, but only because now we're learning so much about seed oils, and it takes a lot of avocado oil to make mayonnaise. So that's why I'm like, oh, maybe I'll buy the Chosen Foods one. You can get it at like BJ's, and they
Yeah.
have like the bigger container, and the price is much better than the little bottle that was $12 at Stop and Shop that I was looking at. And the way my husband goes through mayonnaise, forget it. I can't keep up.
Yeah.
So there are alternatives to all of it. It's just a matter of starting somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So just begin. And with food dyes, just start reading the boxes, and the packages. And I would read everything because, like, well, it's in things you won't think of. Do
Totally. Totally.
you
Yeah,
have
I do.
anything
I
else
try
to
to.
add to it?
What's that?
Do you have anything else to add to this? I
No,
think you covered it
no.
all,
But
right?
you are safe on the 4 outer files, like you said, and or sometimes I even try not to go there. Like I'll go to we're so lucky to have Silverton Farms
Yes.
here, you know. So I'll try to go to the butcher. I'll try to just like keep it so that I'm not going down those aisles. But it just
And
depends on the week and the
honestly,
season.
I was in Spain in November. It was my first time to Europe, and this we had this little apartment, you know, in a little cute town, and we would go get our food in a market, and it was just like my heaven. Like there was, like you
Yeah.
said, the butcher guy was here, the cheese guy was here. You know what I mean? The food, the fresh fruit was over here. It was just like going up to the markets. You know, like it was
Mm,
everything was so fresh. And even when I went into the food store, which is like the supermarket, not the fresh market, like a farmer's market, the box aisles was so small and short and hidden, and it was really all cookies and stuff, you know?
yeah.
If you went to try to get like cereal, and my kids literally took pictures. My kids travel around the world. They take pictures wherever they go for me. Like, and like I think
Oh,
Japan had like 3 cereals. Like they don't have this big like in
mm-mm.
America we're crazy. And
Yeah.
so everything was so much more fresh there. And even the refrigerator, everything's so small. Like you're not like you're just kind of, you know, I mean, I didn't really cook there because we were on vacation, but if I did, you would probably be running down to the fresh market, getting what you need, you know, for a day or two and cooking and then going back or on your way. You know, there wasn't a lot of
Mhm.
cars. A lot of people walked around and it's a different
You would make
lifestyle.
do with what's available. Like, and you would, I mean, and when you do eat that fresh food like that,
Ah,
it tastes so much better that you wouldn't even want that garbage. Like, I think it's just our choices that they've given us, you know. Our
yeah.
foods are full of I mean our food stores are full of processed foods and not real food. And, you know, it just depends on where you're at. I'm at the point where they were making me really, really sick. And,
Yeah.
you know, that's what made up my mind. So that's it.
So we're gonna keep you guys posted about any of the news with the food dyes. We're gonna stay on top of this one because it's like one of our first big wins, you know.
Yeah.
So we're like
Yeah.
yes, and I really think we have Food Babe to thank for that. I really do, and
Oh my God. God bless her for not
God
giving
bless
up.
her for this. Yeah, been
Yeah.
following her since she started. She's younger than me, and she's a warrior in this. She's amazing. Check her out. Check her books out. She's just great.
Yeah. So thankful for her.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well, thanks, Lisa.
thank you, and we'll see you guys at the next show.
Yep. Bye, guys. Have a good
Bye.
day. Thanks.